I think it would be a little bit dramatic if I said that these brownies changed my life, but these brownies changed my life. These brownies are the brainchild of Sarah Britton, the author, founder behind My New Roots, a food blog and now a cookbook. She just published this beautiful book that is dedicated to eating whole foods, nutritious foods, eating for your health. Now, I know when a lot of people think of healthy recipes, they don't often think of really delicious, nourishing, satisfying foods. Sarah changes all of that. Sarah's blog is so inspiring that after 10 minutes of looking through her recipes, I promise you will see food in a totally different way. So I grew up in the 80s. I was a product of the fat is bad, calorie obsessed culture. That was my generation. And so I vilified for most of my life sweets, candy, treats, anything delicious. Now I no longer see things like chocolate as being decadent and naughty, but something that's so vital and delicious and part of a healthy, balanced diet. Yes, chocolate. So today I'm going to show you how to make these delicious, healthy, incredibly decadent treats that you can whip up in just a couple minutes. You don't have to bake them, and they've basically replaced power bars or any sort of energy bars in our house. These are my go-to favorite snack. For this recipe, you're going to need some sort of raw nut, and my favorite two are pecans and walnuts. Walnuts are the plant world's best source of omega-3s, those really vital fatty acids that are necessary for reducing cholesterol and keeping our heart healthy. So I love using walnuts in their raw form in anything that I can. If you live in the southern part of the United States where walnuts are exceedingly expensive, or somewhere around the world, and you have access to pecans, pecans are also delicious in this. They actually taste richer and a little more caramely than the walnuts. So some people prefer pecans. I prefer walnuts, but I think it's just because I live where they grow them and I have a fondness for walnuts. When I say cocoa, most of you think of like cocoa powder, what we've always used, what our mothers and grandmothers used. Hershey's is a common one. I love this Scharfenberger. I think it's delicious. What cocoa powder is it's the processed cacao bean, and it's processed by having some of the fat removed, and it's heated, and it is a delicious product. It's not heated to the point where it loses all of its antioxidants. So cocoa powder is actually really high in antioxidants, and it's very, very good. I believe it's the highest food source of magnesium in our diets. Magnesium comes from the soil. It's one of those vitamins we get from the soil through our food, and our soils are depleted. So a lot of Americans are magnesium deficient. So another good reason to have your chocolate. Now, in this recipe, instead of using regular cocoa powder like this one, I'm using raw cacao. What is raw cacao and how does it differ from cocoa powder? Raw cacao is the whole cocoa bean, the nib, or if you've seen my chocolate video from Mexico, it's the whole chocolate bean ground up. So there's more fiber in raw cacao, there's more calories because there is more fat in it, but it's the wonderful kind of fat for you. And so raw cacao makes a richer, more intense chocolate dessert. They can be substituted cup for cup. You don't have to adjust your quantities. There are more nutrients in raw cacao than there is cocoa. But cocoa is still good for you. If that's what you have and that's what you can get, use it. If you can get a hold of raw cacao, use that. Just my 2 cents. Dates. Now this recipe is very picky in one component. The dates that you use must be Medjool dates. They are a type of date that is really sticky and just incredibly moist. And the quality of the dates are so vital because the moisture that's in Medjool just naturally is what's going to hold this recipe together and make it work. So if you use some of those cheaper dates that you can get, they're really kind of dry and a little bit fibery, they're not going to work in this recipe. You have to have Medjool. So I went ahead and pitted these dates, and this is what it looks like unpitted. And all you do is just pull it in half, and you take this little seed out of the middle. For starters, we're going to measure out 2 cups of our raw, I'm going to use pecans this time, of our raw pecans into our food processor. We're going to process these just until they turn into a nice meal. Not so much that they turn into nut butter, but just a really fine powdered meal. That's it. It's like 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds. They're going to look like this. Just these little nice like crumbs of nuts. Then we're going to take our dates and we're going to feed them into our food processor through the food tube one at a time. What this will do is it'll allow for the perfect timing of our nuts to be ground really fine and our dates to be incorporated without over processing the nuts so that the oil separates out from the nuts, which you don't want. So we don't want oily brownies, we want it all to stay together. Once your mixture starts to clump together into like a ball, then you want to add your cocoa or your cacao powder. I'm going to go ahead and add in, I like about a half a teaspoon of salt. I like my chocolate salty. I think salt brings out the flavor in chocolate. And then we're going to process for just another minute or so. Your brownies are done when all of the dusty bits from that cocoa powder are mixed in and they start to kind of clump up on your blade. Now at this point I taste them. If they are too chocolatey, cacao has not been processed, and so it has some of the bitter components that cocoa nibs have. And so if it's a little bit too bitter for you, you can add in a few more dates. Dates make it really sticky, so you want to be careful. There's a fine balance there. Many of you are going to like your brownies just straight up. I have to have nuts in my brownies. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a cup of chopped raw almonds. Now personally, I'm a fan of toasting nuts before you use them. It deepens their flavor and it brings out this wonderful kind of complexity, and I love it. I especially love it in salads. But in this recipe, I really prefer untoasted raw almonds. There's just a citrusy lightness to them that I think is beautiful with the chocolate. This is an 8-inch candy mold, and it's just, I mean, a simple thing, but I love these because it makes it really easy to cut all of the brownies perfectly. When you have a pan, you've got that one brownie in the corner that you have to kind of sacrifice to get your spatula or your scraper up underneath those. You don't have that with this. You can just kind of like pull it on the sides unmold it, and then you have this perfect square that you can cut and trim. So I'm just putting parchment down. It just makes it a little bit easier. Empty your brownie mixture into your pan. Add your almonds. And I kind of just stir in the almonds a little bit as I'm pressing out the brownie. And you need to press it down a little bit because it will keep the brownies together. That's it. How easy is that? Now, if you want to make this just a little bit fancier, you can just cover the top with a little bit of cacao powder and serve them that way, dusted with this beautiful chocolate powder. These brownies aren't going to be ready for an hour, so you do have to wait. Of course, I eat them right out of the machine, but you can freeze them for an hour, and when they're nice and firm, you cut them into bars. I just usually put them in the refrigerator because if I make them, I might scoop out a few bites out of the food processor, and then I'm kind of done with them. So I can just let them sit overnight and set up. Either way, they're fantastic. They're fantastic for you, and you can give a chocolatey, delicious, satisfying treat to whoever you love and know that you're doing something for their health and their best interests, which is one of the beauties of learning to cook.